The safe in Dad's office. We checked the safe, I said. Kate's eyes widened. You think the will might still be in there? If Dad was reviewing his estate documents, some of them had to be in that safe. Even if the will was destroyed, there could be drafts, notes, something that proves what he intended. Kate nodded, determination settling over her features. We have to look before Michael does. The house was quieter now, most of the mourners gone. We slipped down the hallway toward Dad's study, careful not to draw attention. The heavy wooden door was slightly ajar, and light spilled from inside. I motioned for Kate to stop, then leaned forward to peek through the gap. Michael was at the desk, his back to us, rifling through a drawer. His wife Vanessa stood beside him, arms crossed. Hurry up, she whispered. Someone's going to notice if we stay too long. I know, Michael hissed, but I need to be sure. He yanked open another drawer, flipping through papers with growing frustration. Kate grabbed my wrist, pulling me back into the shadows. We held our breath as Michael muttered a curse and slammed the drawer shut. We'll have to handle it another way, he said. Once I have control, it won't matter. Vanessa touched his arm. And if they don't sign? Michael exhaled sharply. They will. They don't have a choice. Footsteps moved toward the door. Kate and I darted down the hall, slipping into the dining room just as Michael and Vanessa emerged. They passed without noticing us, their voices fading as they moved toward the front of the house. Kate exhaled. That was close. Too close. My heart was pounding. We need to get into that safe. Now. Back in the study, we moved quickly. The room still smelled faintly of Dad's cologne, and grief pressed against my ribs, but I shoved it aside. I knelt by the bookshelf where Dad's safe was hidden behind a row of law books. Kate crouched beside me. Do you know the code? I nodded. Dad had given it to me years ago when he put me in charge of some of the company's architectural files. My fingers trembled as I keyed in the numbers. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. Kate frowned. Did he change it? Maybe. I swallowed hard, thinking. He always used important dates, birthdays, anniversaries. We went through them one by one. Nothing worked. Kate ran a hand through her hair. If Michael changed it, we're screwed. I hesitated, then punched in one more date. Not Dad's birthday, not mine or Kate's. Mom's. The safe clicked open. We exchanged a look, then swung the door wide. Inside were stacks of neatly labeled folders, a few jewelry boxes, and a locked metal case. Kate pulled out a folder labeled estate plan and flipped it open. Her breath caught. Rachel. I leaned over her shoulder. Inside was a copy of Dad's will. The original, signed and notarized. Michael had lied. And now we had proof. Last month, my dad took me to his bank for something important. He led me to his safe deposit box, showing me how to access it and making sure I understood the process. Just in case, he had said. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, as Kate and I sat in stunned silence, his words echoed in my mind. Kate's eyes widened. Do you think? I don't know, I admitted, my pulse quickening. But it's worth checking. The bank opened at 9 o'clock the next morning. As soon as we arrived at First National, the manager recognized us immediately. His face softened with sympathy. I'm so sorry for your loss, he said before guiding us toward the vault area. Your father was one of our most valued clients, he explained while locating the correct box. He maintained several accounts here, as well as this safe deposit box, for over 30 years. He inserted his key, and I used the one Dad had given me. The box slid out smoothly. My heart pounded as the manager stepped away, giving us privacy. Inside were several sealed envelopes, a USB drive, and a leather portfolio. My breath caught as I picked up the largest envelope. The label read, Last Will and Testament. Copy, Greenwood Law Firm. Kate whispered, I knew it. I carefully opened the envelope. The will was clear, comprehensive, and left no room for dispute. Dad had divided Barrett Construction among us, 30% each to Kate and me, 20% to our cousin Michael, and 10% to a charitable foundation he had established in our mother's name. He had also named me CEO, citing my architectural vision and business acumen. Kate, despite her medical career, was to remain on the board. But that wasn't all. The leather portfolio held something unexpected. Detailed plans for a community center project I had once casually mentioned to Dad. He hadn't just listened, he had acted. Inside were funding allocations, land deeds, and architectural renderings, ones I had created. He had already transferred the downtown property and $25 million in development funds into a separate LLC, one jointly owned by him and me. Then there was the USB drive. As I plugged it into my laptop, my stomach tightened. It contained years of company records, and buried among them was evidence that Michael had been quietly diverting company resources for his personal gain. It hadn't been enough to immediately raise suspicion, but over time, the discrepancies added up. He didn't just want control, I said, my voice shaking with realization. He needed to cover up what he was doing. Kate squeezed my hand. What's our next move? I thought of Michael, comfortably seated in Dad's chair, smug and certain of his success. My jaw tightened. We go to the meeting he arranged, I said, but we're bringing some guests of our own. That afternoon, as we stepped into Dad's study, Michael barely concealed his impatience. The signed management agreements were already laid out on the desk, pens at the ready. Have you made your decision? He asked briskly. As I mentioned, we have pressing matters that require immediate attention. We have, I said, my tone calm and deliberate. But before we sign anything, we'd like to introduce a few people. Right on cue, the study door opened. Martin Chin, one of Dad's closest advisors, stepped in first, followed by an elegant older woman, Dad's personal attorney, Sophia Greenwood. Behind them came two members of the Barrett Construction Board. Michael's confidence wavered. What is this? This, I said, placing Dad's will on the desk, is a copy of our father's actual will. The one you knew existed because he reviewed it with all his senior executives last year. Michael's face paled. Where did you? Dad kept copies in his safe deposit box, Kate said smoothly, along with some very interesting company records. Sophia Greenwood stepped forward. As Jonathan Barrett's personal attorney, I can confirm this is his most recent will, properly executed and witnessed. I hold the official copy in my firm's records. Michael's lawyer, Wilson, looked stunned. I was told there was no will, that everything had been destroyed in an accident. There was no accident, I said, my voice steady despite my fury. Michael lied to you. He lied to us. He planned to seize control of everything our father built. These are serious accusations, Michael blustered. But his confidence was unraveling fast. Sophia's voice was sharp. By presenting false documents and attempting to defraud the rightful heirs? That's not ensuring business continuity, Michael. That's criminal. Janet Forrest, one of the board members, folded her arms. The board will need to address this immediately. Your actions represent a serious breach of fiduciary duty. Michael glanced around the room, desperate for an ally. None came. This is a misunderstanding, he insisted. I was only acting in the family's best interests. And the funds you diverted to Pinnacle Ventures? I asked, referencing the information from the USB drive. Was that in the family's best interest too? His face drained of color. How did you? Dad knew, Kate said quietly. He was gathering evidence. That's probably why he made sure we could access the safe deposit box. For the next hour, Michael's betrayal unraveled completely. He had not only attempted to take control of the company but had been embezzling funds for years. Dad had suspected as much but had been collecting undeniable proof before confronting him. By the time the meeting ended, Michael and his wife were escorted from the property. The board called an emergency session, and Sophia began executing Dad's will. Left alone in the study, I finally let my guard down. I can't believe he would do this. Dad trusted him. Kate placed a hand on my shoulder. Dad also protected against it. He made sure we had what we needed to expose the truth. My eyes drifted to the architectural plans for the community center. Dad's legacy project, now my responsibility. What will you do about the CEO position? Kate asked. Dad named you, but you have your firm in Chicago. I traced my fingers over the design sketches. I think it's time to come home. Dad built something important here. He trusted me to carry it forward. A month later, I stood on the vacant downtown lot where the Barrett Community Center would soon rise. Construction equipment stood ready for the groundbreaking ceremony the next day. The project had expanded, not just affordable housing and a medical clinic, but also a center for training underprivileged youth in construction and architecture. Michael was gone, facing criminal charges. Kate had returned to Boston but planned to split her time between her medical career and her role on the board. We had also discovered something else. Dad had been quietly funding a medical research initiative at Kate's hospital in Mom's name. Another part of his legacy we had never known about. As the sun set, a sense of peace settled over me. Dad had prepared us better than we ever realized. Not just with legal protections, but with the wisdom to continue his work. A voice called out across the lot. "Miss Barrett." I turned to my project manager. "We're ready for tomorrow's ceremony, David." Slipping my hand into my pocket, I felt the small, familiar weight of the key to Dad's safe deposit box. A reminder that true inheritances aren't just wealth, but wisdom, foresight, and love. Michael had spent years scheming for control, but he had completely missed the real wealth our father left us, not just in assets, but in respect, relationships, and a vision for the future. While he had tried to take, Dad had been planning what he could give. Standing at the threshold of that future, I silently thanked my father for his final lesson. True legacy isn't measured in dollars or deeds, it's in the change we create and the wisdom we pass on.